welcome back to Stress Tolerance, week 2. Last week we did the overview of distress tolerance. We talked about the stop skill, that handy dandy stop skill, and also doing the pros and cons list. Talked about making it beforehand so you can use it when you need it, and also the function of trying to create one in the moment when you need it, which also can change things up for us and kind of slow things down. Today, all the skills that we're going to go into, this is going to be our TIPP skills day. So for those of you who are following along in the skills handbook, this is distress tolerance handout 6 that we're going to be on. And the PDF that we have referenced is 277 in the PDF for reference. So I probably mentioned this last time because I usually say this together, but just for one more time in case I didn't. The way I think about it is that each one of these skills are skills that you can do independent of each other. So you can just do the stop skill, you can just do pros and cons. And then as we move through the TIPP skills, you can just do one of these skills. And they're also really nice paired together. So sometimes we do the stop skill and we need to do the pros and cons before we move forward. Or we need to do the stop skill and then do some of the TIPP skills and then move on, or keep coming back to these. So I say that to say it's not necessarily just a one-off skill, especially the skills we're going to learn. And feel free to play around with them, or I encourage people to try them on for size outside of crisis survival moments. So you know what these feel like, you get familiar with it, and then you're more likely to utilize it in the moment. That rehearsal is actually a really important part of these skills. So hopefully everyone's practicing, or you have opportunities to practice each skill set. But these in particular, that rehearsal is really important for moving forward with these. All right, so let's take a look at where we're going. What I was thinking for today is so we're going to do the TIPP skills, and TIPP is an acronym. The T stands for temperature change. The I is intense exercise. And then the P, there's 2 Ps. There's paced breathing, and then there's paired muscle relaxation. And what I'm going to do is actually walk us through these backwards, and this is purposefully, so sorry for the listeners, it's not trying to confuse everyone. But I'm going to purposely walk us through these backwards because when we get to the temperature change, what I'd like to do is model one of the skills. And that requires me dunking my face in water. So I would like to end the meeting right after that, so I can go clean up before I go on to my next thing. So this is where we'll be. This is where we'll be flowing through. And if you feel willing, I know you probably don't have the same setup that I do because I am in a home office right now and I have access to a kitchen. But if you want to jump in, I can give you some abbreviated practices to do with them also. Okay, so what I love about the TIPP skills is that these are all based on physiological research. So the emphasis in all of these is essentially doing something, these 4 different somethings, that will change or modulate what's happening in your what's happening from a physiological perspective. So we know that kind of like taking this information of what we know to be true about how we can alter that. We use that information, we use it to help us in the moment, and it helps us to regulate our system. So each one's a little bit different, and they all come from that same knowledge base of using what's happening in our body to change the moment, influence what's happening. Okay, so I'm going to start with the P's here. And for framing, these are still the crisis survival skills. So if we go back to that emotional thermometer, I think we drew one out last time. When you're in that yellow zone or getting close to the red zone, so your emotional intensity is getting higher, this is a great time to practice these skills. And then if you find yourself in the red zone, these are skills that can help bring you back down to the yellow skill or the yellow zone. So we might have to do these a few times over and over again, or do them, go back into our life, and then come back and do them again. So use as needed as you wish through this. We're going to start with paired muscle relaxation. So this is well, how I'm going to do this, Faith, right now, and for anyone listening, we'll go through some practices with all of these. So for this one, I'll just start jumping in and talking about it, and we can do the practices in live time. If I give any prompts that you're like, "Ooh, that doesn't work for my body today," or that's just not, I'm not comfortable doing that, feel free to just shift, do something different, or like do another muscle group. Two handouts over, there is a whole paired muscle relaxation step-by-step guide, which
Mm,
is really useful. This gives a little bit more details. And then what I love about it is here down at the bottom, it breaks down our muscle groups
mm,
into different categories, small, medium, and large. So the way I like to think about it is if you have a lot of time on your hands, you can do the small groupings and do one by one move through these 16 different groups. And if you're a little bit more pressed for time or just depending on what's happening, you don't have to do each individual section. You can just do these larger groupings and then it takes less time to move through it. Um, so let me walk us through it. So what we'll do is we'll start with our hands and our wrist.
mm,
So there's two main things to focus on. One, what we're going to do is kind of grip or tense a muscle group. So with our hands and our wrists, so make fists with both hands. And you're not trying to break any skin or do physical damage to yourself, but you do want to make a pretty significant pressure, like a pretty significant stress in your hands. And we're going to bring your awareness to that sensation of gripping and making that fist. And hold it, really notice it, breathe through it. And then when you're ready, release the fist. Like wiggle your fingers around. You can totally just do like an open hands posture. And just like you brought attention to making the fist, you want to equally bring your attention to feeling that sensation of relaxation.
mm,
So feeling the shift out of like, ooh, that tight tension into something different is equally important. Sometimes when we do progressive muscle relaxation, I see that people will just focus just on the kind of the pain part and not that relaxation part. So we want to be mindful not to skip over that. So to really see if you can stay focused on those sensations. Um, so now that you just did one practice, you might have a better understanding. If I give a cue and you're like, "Ooh, that's not going to work for my body today," shift if that's like too tight. Or you can modulate the intensity. So maybe you did the same thing again. Maybe you just do slightly lighter if that was too tight on your hands, for example.
mm.
Um, okay, I'm gonna do kind of like a medium grouping, kind of move us through a couple different ones of these. So next, let's do our shoulders. So for this one, you can either like kind of get your shoulders to move up to your ears, like scrunching them up. Or another way is to try to bring your shoulders, like try to get your shoulder blades to touch in the back.
Oh yeah, pinch a
It's
pencil. Yeah.
exactly pinch my- So whatever one feels more accessible right now. So go ahead and get to that position and again, hold it and just notice what it feels like to feel that tension. So you're really stiff, nothing's moving, unless there's a little bit of shaking, that's natural. And then when you're ready, drop and then notice. We'll take any movements that feel good here after doing that. I'm going to do the large grouping for your head. Essentially, I'm going to give us like the cue for doing this with your full face.
Okay.
Um, and again, modify like as needed. So for this one, like imagine you just bit into a sour lemon. Like, what is that face? Um, like really tighten everything and like squint your eyeballs, try to furrow your brow, just bring tension to your face. Hold it, feel it, and then release it. Okay, then let's go into um, your abdomen region. Like you're kind of, this is like incorporating your chest and your abdomen. Um, what I want you to do is imagine you're trying to compress your body. So really try to activate all of your core muscles. You can even like whatever cue works for you, like either to really like tighten everything up. And then try to really hold that position and feel, bring your attention to where do you feel those sensations. Again, if you feel any pain, back off, lower the intensity. Hold it, notice it. And then when you're ready, release. Okay, for the next one, I'm sitting. So I'm just turning my body for a second because how I like to do this one when I'm sitting is I'm gonna bring my legs out almost like kind of like Frankenstein arms, but Frankenstein legs. I'm just gonna stick them out straight in front of me. What this does is activates your thighs, and if you point your toes back to you, you're gonna get pretty much your entire muscle, all your muscle groups in your legs to be activated, to be constricted. So find a posture that works for you for really tensing your thighs, your calves. Again, you can play with your ankles, point them in a direction that works for you. Notice that tension. Really feel it. And then when you're ready, you drop them down. I feel like I'm getting a little workout over here. Oh, wait. I forgot. This is going to be really activating. And then, okay, and then last but not least, let's just do our feet. So I have shoes on. So depending on what shoes you're wearing, if you have shoes on, maybe a little constricted, but do the best that you can with this one. The cue that I like to give for this one is I want to try to arch my feet up. Like I try to pull my toes in, like I'm trying to get my toes to touch my heels. Obviously, that's not going to happen, but like imagining just that stance. And then again, the other one that could work is really trying to flex your feet the other direction. So whichever one that works for you, really try to like squeeze those little toes in. Notice it, and then when you're ready, go ahead and drop that. Relax. What I love about this one, you don't need any props. You can do this at any time. And when doing it, like depending on what muscle grouping you're doing, no one also has to notice that you're doing it. So like right now, my hands are in my lap, and I could be tightening my hands, like getting a little fists and then releasing them. And again, just bringing my awareness to that changing in sensation. Same thing with your feet. You can kind of do that at any time. Um, so it's lovely that it's really portable. You can take it anywhere with you. On this worksheet, there is some prompts to pair this with saying to yourself. So when you breathe in and you're tensing the muscles and you're kind of holding it, being really stiff. And then when you breathe out, you say to yourself, relax. Kind of pair that with the word of relaxing. Um, some people will report, and I am one of those people, that when someone tells them to relax, you have the opposite effect. And even when I say it to myself, when I say relax, I'm like, what? I can stretch.
Yeah.
So if that cue doesn't work for you, swap it out for something else like let go, let things be. For this one, I'm just always saying like drop
Mhm.
versus like tense or tightness. Like just okay, drop things, let them be, let it settle. So swap out that verbiage if it doesn't work for you. If you're if you're if you fall in the same camp as I do.
Yeah. Someone tells me to relax, I do the opposite.
Right?
What do you mean?
Like a paradoxical response.
Yes.
Um, okay, so that's paired muscle relaxation. Moving through that, what did you notice? What
Hmm.
was that like for you?
It definitely, like the first time we did, I think it was even, yeah, just the hands and the wrists. Like I legitimately yawned afterwards when we released.
Ah,
And
yeah.
I found my body just like naturally wanting to do that every time we released.
Yeah.
Um, and I kept wanting to like hold my breath when it was really tense, and I had to remind myself to like breathe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, but I was, yeah, that was very, it is so portable. Like I feel like I will use that more, just remembering how powerful that can be.
Yeah.
And I
Nice.
like the cue to really pay attention to the release part as well.
Yes.
So that
Yeah.
was super helpful to be present with that.
Nice.
Mhm.
Yeah. Great one to do. Again, like really anytime, but if you're ever having trouble, if anyone's having trouble falling asleep at the night, or if you wake up in the middle of the night, you're struggling to go back to sleep, focusing, you can move through like again, like really slowly to each muscle group, like slowly move up your legs and then your back, and then um, it can be helpful for getting us back to bed. Really, actually, all of these, with the exception of intense exercise, that probably won't be helpful, but
Mm,
all of these can be helpful for again regulating the nervous system,
yeah.
and helping us reset. Okay, so let's move on to our next P, which is paced breathing. When I was originally getting trained in DBT, I was at the DBT Center of San Diego. So my little shout out to Milton Brown and his team. He's done a lot of research on, particularly on paced breathing. I feel really fortunate to have had a deep dive in doing paced breathing. Um, so I say that I bring this up because sometimes we can get in the weeds of kind of the literature on how things are supposed to be done. And if you know that about yourself, like if it's helpful to have all that information, learn it, know it. You can Google this, you can look up studies on paced breathing and see how it helps with our re-regulating ourselves. There's also biofeedback and heart rate variability training. All of that falls in like the kind of the paced breathing category. Essentially changing your breath and learning to work with your breath and seeing how that impacts your system, how it speeds things up and how it slows things down. So the shortest, most condensed way of describing this to people, if you could leave here with one thing about paced breathing, or let's say two things. When we inhale, that speeds our system up. That gets us ready for action. So you take a breath in before you to go sprint. And when we exhale, that activates the brakes of the system and that slows things down. So if you've ever been really anxious and people are like, just take deep breaths, that's wrong. Actually, what you want to do is take long, slow exhales. I'm on a mission to change the world with how we prompt people in those moments. Don't do that. Don't hyperventilate. Just
Woosa.
breathe out. Okay, so the image that I like to show for this one that I just think is a simple like visual to help us remember is to think of a rectangle. So on the short parts of the rectangle, this is represents the in-breath, and the longer sections of the rectangle is the out-breath. So rectangular breathing is another way of thinking about it. So in your mind, you can think about a rectangle where you could look at the screen, and then for a couple rounds of breath, you're going to breathe in and pace yourself of breathing in and then breathing out with the primary function and primary goal of making that exhale longer than the in breath, like the shape of a rectangle. Um, Everyone is gonna have a different breathing, slowed breathing rate, that's really going to be the rate that kicks in that parasympathetic nervous system response, like again, the brakes of the system. The rate that every person needs is going to be individualized. And we can start with um, either a 10-second breath cycle or a 12-second breath cycle. I'm going to model doing a 12-second breath cycle. So what that looks like is breathing in for 5 seconds, in for 5, out for 7. There's different ways to figure out what your pace is going to be, but without doing like a formal kind of practice of figuring that out in this moment. What I'll do is I'm going to cue us to do this together. We'll just spend 2 minutes of breathing at the slower pace cycle. So see if you can really stick with that rectangular visual. Again, just expanding your exhale a little bit longer than your out breath. If this feels like torturously long, shorten it up, like do 10 seconds, do 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out, um, or even shorter than that. The main emphasis again is just making that out breath longer. So whatever rhythm you start finding yourself in, if you need to modify as we start, you're welcome to change that. Um, and then there's really no wrong way to breathe. There's so many different breathing methods out there, and people learn things in different from different places and have lots of questions about breathing. So there's just know that you're breathing in the right way. And if you want to close your eyes, you can close your eyes. You do not have to close your eyes. You can do soft gaze. That helps hold your attention. Um, I've had people trace the rectangle like on a paper as they're breathing, just to help keep them like really focused on the breath. You can also use the timer on your phone, like use a stopwatch to then cue you to make sure that you're actually breathing in for those 5 seconds and breathing out for those 7 seconds. If you've never done peace breathing before, I would say use some sort of a timer when you go to practice this later, so you can really see actually how long you are breathing for. Oftentimes we think that we're pacing really well internally, like 1, 2, 3, but in live time, that can have so many variables to it. I've taught peace breathing in classes, and without timers, we have a wide range of how fast people are breathing, even though they all think they're on the same pace. So everyone should be, hypothetically at the same rate. Um, just for 2 minutes,
Yeah.
we'll do some peace breathing. Any questions before we start?
Mm-mm.
No? Sounds straightforward. We're good?
Yeah, it does.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, awesome. Okay, so before I set this timer for a moment, go ahead and just take a couple rounds of breath without trying to change it. So it's like bringing your awareness to your breath. And then on your next inhale, go ahead and inhale for 5. And then exhale for 7. Again, if you're starting this and you're feeling like lightheaded or you're running out of air too quickly, slow the pace down. Maybe do 4 in, 6 out. Another thing that we can do is pretend on the exhales that you have a straw in your mouth and like you're breathing through the straw. Okay, go ahead and polka, everyone.
Sue, I really appreciate you.
Okay, pace breathing, trying a 12-second breath cycle.
Mhm.
How was that for you? What did you notice? What happened during that?
Mm. At first, I wasn't looking at the timer because it felt really nice. Just I realized I was following my heartbeat actually for the counts, and it felt nice. Pace breathing has given me anxiety in the past, or it made me feel anxious sometimes when it felt too long, especially in moments when my breathing was really short. But this felt super spacious and accessible right now because I think I'm in a very relaxed place. So that
Yeah,
was nice. And it
neat.
was super helpful to watch the timer.
Good. Okay, great. Yeah, it's a great cue or prompt.
Yeah,
People have
definitely.
two different responses to timers. Like the response that you just had, like it's helpful. I feel similarly, especially if I haven't done pace breathing for a while.
Yeah.
Use a pacer, use a track, use something that shows you the timing. Um, and some people have the opposite response that watching the clock tick down makes them feel more anxious, and then they get more stressed, and it's harder to follow the pace.
Yeah.
Um, so if you need to tune it out, tune it out. And if you feel willing, it's a really great way of pacing yourself. So 12 seconds for most people is going to be a slower breath cycle for sure. So
Mm-hmm.
again, for anyone listening, if that was a little bit too long, again, if that felt torturous or you're running out of air, try the 10-second breath cycle. If you do a 10-second breath cycle, that's 6 breaths per minute. Even that is often slower than how we're just naturally breathing in any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
But again, everyone's a little bit different. So a 10-second breath pace is a great place to start for a lot of people too. I purposely picked one that was a little bit longer just to model that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I mentioned it when we were starting, like pretending like you have a straw in your mouth is a great way to
Mm-hmm.
constrict the airflow. So it just kind of, again, slows that down. Um, breathing in through your nose, breathing out of your mouth, like whatever works for people, whatever, again, is accessible. We just did a 2-minute breathing practice. I typically will encourage people to do a 3-minute breathing practice because I do feel like it takes that repetition and really sticking with it to feel that feeling when the calming response kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
So even right then when we were practicing this and I was talking a little bit through it, so maybe I had like about a minute of doing it, I felt this like subtle shift in my shoulders and like in my back. I kind of rested into the chair a little bit more and I was like, oh, there's that feeling of like it just kind of softened.
Mm-hmm.
And it will register in different places for different people, but typically people will report that once they become familiar with pace breathing, they find the pace that really kicks in that calming response. That there's a time in their practice that they know I have to do at least 2 minutes for this to really kick in. And you can do this for really, you can do this for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You can do it as long as you like, if necessary. You can do it in shorter intervals, stop, come back to it. This is another really great one to do right before bed because it
Mm-hmm.
helps again, kicks in that the calming system. It slows things down. I also will tell people who are having difficulties with rumination, if you're really anxious, you have a lot on your mind, you do pace breathing. Again, the system starts turning down the speed on the operation, and the byproduct of that is your thoughts often will slow down as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's many uses for pace breathing. Love, love, love pace breathing. And I'll link some resources for people who want to learn more about it, and then tools for finding your specific pace that will elicit that response.
Mm-hmm. I like how all these tools feel so accessible because they're not like you said, you don't need props. Like the airplane
Yes.
analogy you shared last time,
Yes.
like I could easily imagine myself doing like a paired muscle relaxation thing, just trying to like
Uh-huh.
sit through a moment like that or pace breathing during a stressful meeting or something.
Totally.
It's excellent. Yeah.
Pace breathing before you respond to an email,
Mhm.
before you give a presentation,
Yes.
when you're on the phone with someone. I mean, yeah, anytime you can use this one. And those two are really nice to put together.
Mm. Mhm.
Pace breathing and paired muscle relaxation at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice
Yeah.
little stacking there.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna switch it up now and talk about. So we had two things that really slow down the system, and for a moment, we're gonna talk about using intense exercise and how this one's helpful. Um, and then we'll end on the temperature change. What I love about using intense exercise is that for me, it felt so counterintuitive when I learned this one. Like, so you're telling me I'm like starting to get him distressed and like you want me to go sprint or go do some interval training? Like, yeah, like no, that's not gonna happen. So it didn't even register in my brain as something to do, as a tool to help regulate how I was feeling. And once I learned it and found the willingness to try it out, super effective for getting our system to reset. So essentially what we're doing is some form of intense exercise where you are getting your heart rate up into that like 70% zone. So like pretty high intensity. So if anyone's ever done like a HIIT workout before, if anyone's worn a heart rate monitor, you can look up your age, and what at what intensity or like what frequency you can be doing something to get yourself in a certain heart rate zone, like what that would look like. So if anyone has a heart rate tracker or like a smartwatch that does that, there's lots of different ways of taking your heart rate. Figuring out what that zone is and how to get there is an important part of this. And without that information, you can do by feel. So at a 70% zone-ish or getting close to that, you won't be able to talk like how we're talking or how I'm talking right now. It's really difficult to carry a conversation. You might get short of breath, and that's the intention. That's the goal here. So what this is doing is by expanding this energy and getting your heart rate to go up. So you're exhausting the system, like you're pushing yourself. It then forces your body to re-regulate afterwards.
Mm.
When your body gets out of that, it gets into that harder zones, then it wants to come back down to its baseline. So if I'm feeling in difficult emotions or I'm feeling, again, like in that yellow, closer to red zone, again, it sounds counterintuitive to push yourself more into the red zone from physiologically. But again, what it does is it forces the system to have to come back down afterwards.
Mm.
So that's like the literature behind this, um, and why it works and how that works here. So how do we do this? This is going to be very per person dependent and what you feel like what's accessible in your body and what feels doable. But just some like classic ones that I've heard people doing. So I mentioned the sprints. If you're a sprinter, if you want to go do that, you can go do sprints. If you have weights nearby, you can do some heavy lifting for a few moments. There's a wall behind me. I can go do a wall squat and really hold
Mm.
it. You can do planks, push-ups, sit-ups. If you have props for this one, if you have access to a gym or workout equipment in your house, you can use those. And again, finding ones that you don't need props for, um, it is it makes it more doable.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'm trying to think about abbreviations here. So, I mean, exercise by and large, or just moving your movement by and large, is so effective across the board for helping us regulate our systems. So sometimes you will tell me like, oh, it's not accessible for me to like run right now or do that sprint, or maybe I can't lift weights because of an injury, but I can like just go for a walk. Would that fall into this category? Like technically, no, that's not intense exercise. You're not getting your heart rate into that zone. And if just taking a walk is helpful for your mood, go do that. If it helps you like process something. I know so many teams that I work with where they have meetings and then they go walk afterwards before they go back into their work. So if that's like helpful, do that for sure. Um, and if you've never done exercise and this feels like really like you're going into unfamiliar territory, start slow and just get familiar with it.
Mhm.
You can even like just figure out what that heart rate zone is that you'd be trying to shoot for, and maybe even getting like in a 50% zone. Like, what does that feel like? And getting comfortable with that. Um, that That would be awesome. Yeah.
As a power zone enthusiast for a lot of the workouts stuff that I do, I
Yeah.
think a helpful cue is if you're kind of lower intensity, you can breathe easily through your nose. But
Ah,
if you once
yes.
you get into like the higher intensity zones, you will be forced to open your mouth.
Ah,
And that for me is a super helpful like physical cue where I'm like, oh, I got to breathe through my mouth now. So like I must be getting closer to that zone.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great props
Yeah.
or great prompts for people. Um, if I think the full skill, so we're about to talk about this, the temperature change, there's kind of like abbreviations of how to do this. The full skill here would be to shoot for doing some form of intense exercising or like vigorous exercise for like 20 minutes. Now you can take breaks. So, okay, so like hold that plank, get off, go back into it, do something else. Um, Staying in that like high intensity zone for that amount of time obviously is very challenging and will definitely force your system to re-regulate. There's also you can also just do little blips of this, so a couple minutes, just like we did with the pace breathing. Can you hold it for 3 minutes? Can you hold it for 2 minutes? So we can build mastery at this too. And it does, and again, I don't really, I think in practice, it doesn't have to look one way. Can look like so many different ways. So whatever is accessible for you, just try it and then see what does that feel like to get your heart rate going really high. And then what does it feel like when it starts coming back down? What does it look like in your body? That makes sense? Question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to throw down and be like, now drop and give me push ups for me.
I know it's so weird. It's the one I didn't want to practice right now. Practice this morning and I am so tired. My body is.
Well done. Well done. No, you were prepared for this session.
Um, okay. So last but not least, we're going to talk about the temperature change skill.
Mm.
Um, so it says on here, T stands for tip the temperature. DBT acronyms are wild. But here we are. So temperature change. That's just the easiest way to remember it. Most people, when they think about tip skills, will think about this skill in particular, but there are 4 skills here. So there's lots to pull on. On the next page over on handout 6A, this actually walks us through what's happening here and why we use this skill. So really cool fun fact about mammals, all mammals, is that we have something called the dive response. So essentially what this is when our bodies are submerged in cold water, it activates what's known as the dive response, which is again that parasympathetic nervous system kicks in and it slows everything down. Slows down your heart rate, slows down your breathing. There's different theories on why we have the dive response, but just without knowing that, just know that we have this. This is helpful information. Now you're gonna use it to our benefit. Um, so the full skill here is creating an ice bath. I'll model this. I have a bowl today. I'm going to put ice in a bowl. I'm going to fill it up with cold water. And then what you do is you submerge your face in the cold water. So I've seen people do this in their sinks. Again, if you have a bowl accessible. Um, and what you do is you dunk your face. And by doing so, you're getting that cold water to hit. There's 2 key spots that I'm like most familiar with that are essential for activating the dive response. This is like this area like right underneath our eyeballs, right here. And then also right at the back of our neck, like where our neck goes like into like our skull base there. It's kind of like 2 spots that are like really sensitive for kicking in this reflex, this response. So I say that to say what's important here is that when you do the ice dunk, that you either get your full face submerged or if you can get your full head like into that water, which is why if you have a cold pool accessible, great time to go jump into that pool for the tip skill here if you want the full body. Safety first, make sure it's not too cold. Um, that's the areas that we're shooting for. So as you can imagine, you're gonna have to. Everyone does it a little bit differently. Some people will take an inhale in and then dunk their face. Some people will take the inhale out and then dunk their face, kind of hold. Then you come up, take a breath, do it again. So you want to try to do this. It says it may take 15, 30 seconds to start. You do not need to hold your breath for that long. You can hold it for a couple seconds, come back up. But essentially, you just want to keep re-submerging yourself in that cold water until you feel that dive response kick in. So similar to paced breathing, you'll feel a little woof, you'll feel that change. Um, so the full skill is doing the face dunk, as we like to call it. And when you do that properly, like when you put your face in a bowl of cold water, typically you'll see like heart rate reduction of like 10 to 25%. Like so it's like a pretty powerful change, heart rate variable change. Um, and so the most effective skill is doing the full skill. Now, there's also abbreviations. So I have with me a little beanbag, a little pack. If anyone's familiar with these, you can throw them in the microwave and heat them up like when you have sore muscles. I keep mine in my freezer. So when I need it, I can just throw it on the back of my neck and lay down and just kind of rest there until I feel that kind of change. Or you can just throw it right on your face. Again, if you try to get that area around your eyes, that's awesome. There's like little tiny cold packs that you could just hold on your face. Um, Another one can be I've had people grab cold beverages. So if you're out and about and you need something, could you go run in somewhere and get like an iced coffee, an iced water, whatever, and just hold that cold beverage. So by holding the cold, you're not hitting those like key points that's really going to kick it in like very quickly. You're going to see that big drop. But over time and consistently holding the cold, it will kick in the same response, but just takes a longer period of time.
Mm.
So the way I like to think about it is like it will all be effective, but it's just the intensity and how quickly it happens is going to change based on the abbreviation that you do. Um, a total other abbreviation, you can go sit in your car and pump the air conditioning and just let the air conditioning like really hit you, get really cold. I have coached a many number of people, and I've also found myself um, at moments. I've gone to a grocery store and walked down the cold aisles of the grocery store. When you go to the freezer section, like really dip your head into the freezer. You're really looking for that last box of something in the very back corner. And like no one needs to know what you're doing. Just go hang out in that freezer section. Same thing, you're going to get that cold exposure. And it's really helpful for regulating our mood. So anyone's ever felt irritable during summer, hot, humid months?
Oh, yeah.
Fun fact, go hit the grocery store and go to
Oh,
the freezer aisles.
genius. Genius.
People have asked me if you can do like cold plunges. So cold plunges work here. Also, doing a colder shower. Um, if the only people that shouldn't do this skill is if they've been told that you have a heart condition and you shouldn't slow your heart rate. So if you know this from your provider, if you have something in your medical history where you're not supposed to lower your heart rate, then you can skip this one and you can do all the other ones. The peace breathing, paired muscle relaxation, and intense exercise. Those are yours. But for
Awesome.
everyone else, this is accessible. So what I love to do is practice this. Before we do that, any questions about this skill or all the tip skills?
Mm-mm.
And on the practice?
Yeah. I guess for this one, just for the water one,
Yeah.
you said it takes 15, 30 seconds before you start to feel the effect. Was that right? Yeah. Okay.
That's
So,
like
yeah.
that's like a window that we're kind of
Mhm.
shooting for. What I what we don't want is like if someone dunks their face one time and it comes up like, oh, it doesn't work. I was like, stick with it. Do it a few more times. Like really, can you do that exposure for like a half a minute?
Yeah.
And try to
Yeah.
work.
Okay. That's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is like the break the glass in case of an emergency tip skill. Like when you're in that red zone, you need something that's going to be effective and like really give that like kind of powerful effect. This is your go-to skill to use. So it's not the everyday skill. The abbreviations can be for sure to help regulate. But when you really need something strong and powerful, doing the ice dunk is the one that we go to.
Awesome.
Well, last thing I'll say before I model this, because then that will be the end for today, um, is that again, like these are you can pair all of these together. So like crisis situations. You could throw ice packs on your face, back of your neck, lay down on the couch or on the floor, wherever you are. Do some paired muscle relaxation with that. You could do paced breathing. You could do all three kind of at the same time. I also love the pairing of intense exercise and then doing the temperature change like
Mm.
afterwards, or kind of like alternating between those, just depending on the thing. And then, of course, once our body gets re-regulated, if we start thinking about, or we're often running back into the whatever the prompting events were before, most likely our systems are going to go back up again. So again, it's not a one and done. We can keep coming back to this
Mm.
if needed. Um, okay, and this is a common one that I get asked to model, so I'm happy to finally do this for people after all the years of requests. And we used to do actually practice this in skills groups when I was back in person. Right now, I teach all my groups online. But I feel like this is one you have to experience to trust that this is a thing. Because it's all theoretical until you actually do it.
Yeah.
So again, if you feel willing, I really encourage everyone to try this, or some abbreviation of it just to see what the impact is. So I'm going to use an app on my phone, that's going to just measure my heart rate. So if anyone, there's a billion apps out there, so whatever one works for you. And it will see what my current heart rate is. First, I'm going to take my pulse. And if you want to do it the old-fashioned way, you can do that as well if you know how to take your pulse.
Hmm.
So start by seeing what your current heart rate is.
Yeah.
What I have here for myself is a cold bowl of water. So there are ice cubes that have now shrunk since the time I filled this. Based off of feel, I would say this is probably a little under 50 degrees. Like this feels like pretty chilly. Um, we're kind of shooting for that 50. So the water doesn't need to be like freezing cold. And again, because your pack is frozen, so it's going to be cold, but you're not going to be able to get like every little nook and cranny.
No.
You're just going to be exposing it to your skin.
Yeah.
So put on the skin when for you for that ice pack since it's a tough one. See if they can like just like kind of hold it in one place or maybe try the back of your
Up
neck.
here. Yeah.
And then same thing. Um, just try to do it, just hold it on here for kind of as long as not as long as you can, but hold on for a good few seconds. So let's try to shoot for 30 seconds. Intervals. Let's do a couple. I'm gonna see how long I can do the face dunk, and I'll do a model doing it a couple times, and then I'll retest my heart rate.
Ah, sounds
Okay,
good.
sound good?
Yes.
Okay. So whenever you're ready, get my towel here. Oh, I'm gonna go ahead and I breathe out and then I dunk my face. So I'm gonna breathe out. Okay, I did three. dunks. My face is feeling pretty chilled. So I'm gonna retest my heart rate and just see where I'm at. Yeah, mine came down 15 by 15.
Yeah.
Um, it's actually interesting. At first, I noticed feeling kind of similar, like you can get anxious before doing this, like, oh, how am I holding my breath? The second time in and then the third time in, I could hold a little bit longer, and it definitely felt like, oh, there was a little shift there.
Mm.
I'm even noticing it like in my breath right now. Definitely feel that change. How was it for you? What did you do? And how was it?
Well, I couldn't resist. I had to look up and watch you dunking your face at one point, which was really fun. But um, yeah, actually, it was super cold. And in the beginning, I kind of was like, oh, that's just cold, you know? But then probably like 10 seconds in or so, about maybe halfway in, I definitely felt like I relaxed into it a bit more or something. And I did feel like some sort of like shifting down from third gear to second gear or something.
Oh,
Felt,
nice. Very
felt
cool.
really nice. I was like, huh, yeah.
Great. Okay, that's the tip skills.
Yes. Thank
Encourage
you for
everyone
being
to
a
practice.
willing instructor with your ball light.
Yes. And thanks for jumping in and practicing with me.
Totally. Yeah. Thank you.
All next week.
Definitely. Thank you again for joining us today. If you like this episode, please share, follow, and like us on your favorite podcast app. Check us out on social at The Skills Podcast or On Point Practice, and check out our website at theonpointpractice.com. Catch you next time.